If I can't come forward, can't go public about this issue, there is no way anyone else will. So as a victim, I needed to stand up. I just needed to.
As a boy, Manny Waks was sexually abused by an Orthodox Jewish security guard employed by the Yeshivah Centre in Melbourne.
People often think about the toll on the victims, but there is an incredible toll that the victims' families also have to pay.
When Manny went public in 2011, alleging high-level cover-ups, he shattered a millennia-old, ultra-Orthodox code of silence. The punishment for informing non-Jewish authorities used to be excommunication, and centuries ago, even death. Today, Manny's father is bearing the brunt of the backlash. His relationship with the community he gave most of his life to has been poisoned.
I need a written declaration from the rabbi that I am not an informer and that my son is not an informer and that talking to the police and the media is not against Jewish law and that therefore no basis to shun me at all.
Any instance of child abuse is a vile and evil thing. Australians
when Prime
know
Minister
that.
Julia
And
Gillard
Australians
launched a royal
know from the
commission into
revelations that
institutional
they've read in
responses to
recent
child
weeks
sexual abuse,
that too
it
many
followed
children-
an explosive string of accusations against Catholic clergy and church hierarchy.
They've not only had their trust betrayed by the abuser, but other adults who could have acted to assist them have failed to do so.
The revelations were shocking and further tarnished the Catholic Church's already damaged reputation. But Christianity wasn't the only religion embroiled in child sexual abuse. In Melbourne, Jews were struggling to keep the lid on their own Pandora's box of scandals.
We never spoke about this issue. It was always a Catholic Church issue. And I remember seeing this over time, that, every time there's a scandal with the Catholic Church, I'm thinking, well, it's not just the Catholic Church, it's within us, our own community as well.
For Manny Waks, that community was the Yeshivah Centre, a vast complex that's home to Melbourne's fervently Orthodox Chabad Lubavitch Jews. Less than 5,000 live in Australia, with most in the Melbourne suburb of Balaclava. With their distinctive black hats, beards and coats, Chabad Jews are highly visible and intensely pious. Their mission of connecting non-Orthodox Jews to Judaism has made them a revered part of Jewish life.
Just takes 10 seconds of blessing and that's it.
Growing up in a Chabad family and community is all I've ever really known, so for me it was just part of my DNA almost.
Manny is the eldest son of 17 children. Short for Menachem, he was named after the leader of the movement in New York, Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Many of his followers believed he might be the Messiah, and even though he died in 1994, some still do. The Waks family, believed to be Australia's largest, was a pivotal part of the Chabad community.
Chaim, Yosef, Rivka, Shlomis, Esti,
16 of the children have grown up.
Abigail, Manny,
Only the youngest still lives at
Levi,
home.
Dalbert, Yankee, Shmaya.
Being one of 17 is really all I've ever known. It was just natural. It was just going an annual event, go to the hospital to pick up the next baby, and the house kept on getting bigger and the family was expanding.
I ran it very much with a very strict hand, very much like a military camp. You didn't eat yet? When Mummy was here, did you eat or not? I saw you here this morning, you did eat breakfast. That's not true. That other people would find it very oppressive or repressive. No more breakfast now. And I still get flack from it on blogs now, as if I was as a dictatorial tyrant.
The relationship between us has not been one of a lot of emotions. And when you've got 17 kids, you probably don't have that time to have that emotional relationship.
They were different times. They were, a lot of water has flown under many bridges since then. What can I tell you? One could never have dreamt that we would be where we are today, doing what we're doing today.
The Torah commands Jews to observe 613 commandments. Every day, Orthodox Jews adhere to scores of laws they rigorously follow. In addition, Chabad Jews have their own distinct customs.
There are these meticulous practices. If you're right-handed and that's your stronger side, then your shirt, you put the right hand first and then the left hand. You've got to, the same thing with the pants, the shoes. All these things kind of dominate every aspect of your life.
The focal point of their faith, the Yeshivah Centre, is directly across the road.
The Yeshivah Centre is essentially the peak group for the ultra-Orthodox Lubavitch movement. There are schools, there are youth groups. It is a lifeline for family support, for guidance, for community.
At Yeshiva College, Manny was immersed in the study of the Torah for up to 14 hours a day.
I was a student at that school, and I could not have thought of a warmer, more caring or safe environment.
When Manny was 11, no one suspected his warm, caring and safe Chabad world was being turned upside down by the centre's security guard, who also taught some of the boys martial arts.
He was my karate teacher. He used to pick me up, take me to the class. To and from the karate classes, he used to molest me. He used to do some degrading things as well during the class. The most serious offence that I remember happened inside the mikveh, the ritual bath.
He used to tell me I don't want to go to the mikveh. So he said, Ima, I can't go between 12 o'clock, I think, to 1. I'll go later. That's when I start to understand something happening. I was very naive. To face this problem, I never even dreamed there is a problem like that, you know? It's hard, very hard.
It's a place of religious significance. It is usual practice that you have a bath naked. Then he was caressing my thighs and playing with my penis by holding his hand around it and rubbing his hand up and down it. Left an indelible mark on me. He did what he did in a so-called holy place. And then at the end of it, it got to such an extent that I blacked out. Just, you know...
We certainly had no idea, not myself, not my parents, nor anyone else for that matter, that he was being abused.
But Manny's parents began noticing a change in his behaviour when he was around 11 or 12.
Well, disturbing in class a little bit. Maybe talking, I don't know.
I started desecrating the Sabbath and not keeping the Jewish laws and desecrating all sorts of other laws. It took a lot of courage to do because, desecrating the Sabbath, growing up, you learn that you're going to get stoned to death. And I'll never forget the first piece of not kosher meat or chicken that I had. I forced myself. I said, I need to finish this and I need to do it because, I just needed to become not religious and do these not religious things. That's how strongly I felt about it. And I remember screaming at one stage, I hate this house. I don't want to live here anymore.
He rebelled and started breaking the rules. We had no access to TV or movies or non-Jewish music or girls, and he started doing all those things.
My parents threw me out of the house. That wasn't something that I particularly remember fondly of. I mean, I was having fun, but it was, not in the most healthy ways. I didn't talk to them for, I think it was a couple of years.
So he ended up being out of home in different ways, eventually leading to his migration to Israel.
In Israel, Manny joined the army, spending 2.5 years in the Israel Defence Force. In 1996, he returned to Australia for a few months for his sister's wedding.
Before I say anything, I've had a couple more too many to drink. So, like, anything I say cannot be used against me in a court of law.
Because he might infect his religious siblings with his rebellious attitude, the only way he was able to live under his parents' roof again was literally to sleep in it.
So they'd much rather kind of quarantine me in some ways. And this was kind of my little ensuite, you know, just...
Being hidden away in the attic echoed the way Manny had had to hide his dark secret for years.
This is definitely a health hazard.
But his silence was about to end.
Please don't turn your back on a kid you think is being sexually abused.
There was a thing called Operation Paradox going on then.
In confidence.
This is when an awakening happened in the world about child sexual abuse.
A media campaign encouraging victims to report abuse was launched on TV. It was the catalyst for a massive change in the Waks family.
I was sitting in my office and he was in his room upstairs.
Because if you can't face it, how will they?
And he heard it and I'd heard it already a few times, and he came down to me and told me what had happened. He didn't tell me any details, just something happened to him. Should we report it, or he wants to report it? I was shocked, of course I was shocked. I felt really, really bad about it because I felt I'd let him down. And then came with it a level of feeling helpless and feeling very sad that such a thing had happened on my watch.
Manny's karate teacher was David Cyprus, an Orthodox Jew officially employed by the Yeshivah Centre as a security guard.
It was one time during a karate class I did something wrong. He took me around the back and told me I had a choice of doing one of two things. One thing was some impossible thing to do, and the other thing was to drop my pants and run around the yard half naked. I felt I had no choice but to do the other, so I ran around the yard without my pants on while he stood and watched. You've got to live with this most personal secret for decades. I don't think people can really understand that, comprehend it fully, unless you have experienced that yourself.
We rang up the police straight away and I went with him and we both made statements. Manny told me that his whole class had known about the abuse, and in fact he suffered doubly because they used to tease him about it.
I used to walk past there, used to stand there doing security. He would stand there and just smirk at me. I used to walk past there and I used to catch eyes with him sometimes, and he used to stand there just like, we both know what I did and what happened, and I got away with it. That's the message I was getting. I used to be so angry. And it sometimes got worse. Occasionally, I had to walk inside the Yeshivah synagogue for my brother's bar mitzvah. Who was the person standing there who technically needed to authorise my entry? My tormentor.
Bolstered by his police statement and concerned his abuser had easy access to prey on other children, Manny had the first of several exchanges with the head rabbi of Chabad in Melbourne.
I mean, I think in many ways, Rabbi Groner is the equivalent of an archbishop. I was very happy, at least, that I was able to muster the courage to go and confront him about this specifically. And Rabbi Groner said to me that we're addressing it, we're dealing with it. He's getting psychological help. We're looking after him. Please just keep this quiet. And I said to him, Rabbi Groner, can you assure me that he's not reoffending now, or that he will not reoffend with all the access that he has now? And he said to me, no, I can't.
Police questioned David Cyprus, who denied the allegations. It was Manny's word against his. Without further evidence, the police could take no further action. The case went cold. Manny got married, had 3 kids, and moved to Canberra to work as a government bureaucrat. He became president of the Jewish community there, but his scars remained. But Manny wasn't the only alleged victim of child sexual abuse at Yeshivah College. In the early 1990s, David Kramer, an Orthodox teacher, was accused of molesting pupils, while some officials were alleged to have covered it up.
Everyone knew about Rabbi Kramer. He didn't abuse me, but he was a former teacher of mine.
Once I remember one of my sons came running like crazy. I was in a laundry and they came and told me, Ima, everybody's talking about Kramer. Everybody's saying Kramer is doing this and did that. That's how we slowly found out.
David Kramer's abuse became so widely known that in 1992, when Rabbi Abraham Glick was still principal of Yeshivah College, Kramer fled the country. In fact, the Yeshivah Centre offered to pay for him to leave. Kramer fled to America, where he was jailed in 2008 for sodomising a boy at a synagogue camp.
The fact that Kramer managed to leave the country and was enabled to commit his crimes again in the United States, that's all you need to say to show that what took place was a disaster.
Anybody that knew and could have stopped him living in Australia has got blood on their hands. It's as simple as that, including me. I'm not denying that.
Zephaniah, along with many parents and staff, were aware of the allegations against Kramer, but didn't act in fear of the ancient law of Masira, a code of silence to ensure that Jews deal with conflicts in-house.
Masira is the dobbing in. And then the punishment for Masira was excommunication, yes, and worse.
Masira was introduced thousands of years ago when turning a fellow Jew over to Gentile authorities was tantamount to a death sentence. Although the last known killing occurred hundreds of years ago, some still fear that washing Jewish laundry in public will stoke the fires of anti-Semitism.
A person that does Masira is called a Mossad. Anybody can come and kill this guy, in principle. Going to the police without permission or something like it could make you liable to be killed. Now, I'm not saying at the moment that anyone is, I'm not in fear of my life, but that's the sort of gravity with which it's regarded.
When David Kramer's release from an American prison was looming in 2011, Victoria Police opened proceedings to extradite him. But investigators were confronted by a community enveloped in a code of silence.
I wrote a front page story back in June 2011 saying that police were trying to breach the wall of silence surrounding alleged sexual assaults that had occurred at Yeshivah College. Although there were public statements from Jewish community organisations stressing that the prohibitions of Masira did not apply, people whom I spoke to from within the Yeshiva community, off the record, said that they felt that there was a strong reluctance to go to secular authorities, to go to the media, to go to the police.
Manny read Jewel Topsfield's article in mid-2011, revealing that David Kramer may be extradited from America to face multiple charges of sexual abuse at Yeshivah College.
I was absolutely gobsmacked that I was seeing this in the mainstream media. And what it told me was, okay, this is my opportunity now. I knew it wasn't about David Kramer. I knew that this was a much broader issue. And I called the police who were investigating this case. I was completely crying on the phone, talking to him, not believing what he was telling me, that they were opening all the cases of abuse at Yeshiva.
Manny's own abuser, David Cyprus, was still at large. Manny believed the only way he could get justice, not just for himself, but for other victims, was to go public despite the consequences.
I did everything that I could within my power to pursue justice privately. I went to the police in '96. I went to Rabbi Groner on several occasions, and I got nowhere. What else should I have done? I felt that if I go public with my story, then this will be a game changer. So I called Jewel Topsfield from The Age, and I said to her, I want to speak to you in confidence. Can you guarantee me? And she said yes. I told her my story.
And he said he was a high-profile member of the community, and he felt that by coming forward and saying, I was a victim of sexual abuse, it may encourage other people to come forward.
Manny's mother, who cannot show her hair in public as an Orthodox married woman, runs a wig shop. She was against him going public because it could ostracise the family from the Chabad community.
I was the president of Women of Chabad movement in Melbourne. I didn't want all this. I didn't know how far it's going to go, really.
It wouldn't have been easy to see your son, later your husband, taking on people, her friends and her community.
I didn't realise what he meant. I thought he meant telling some people openly. That's all I thought he meant.
Before any more victims come forward.
Absolutely.
I didn't think media and all that sort of stuff.
And I remember then couldn't sleep the whole night and woke up very early in the morning and the article was published and basically all hell broke loose after that. I was getting inundated with Facebook messages, emails, phone calls, texts from all over the world. It was just astounding. And what was interesting, I had many victims contacted me even that day on Friday and just telling me their own story.
When I saw this article about money and about all the situation, it was like a boom. I felt, whoa, what's next?
Next was a brutal backlash. The quickest and cruelest appeared on social media.
It's about time someone took action against Manny's cavalier tactics.
Zephaniah is a person who spits in the well from which he drinks. He and Manny want to destroy Yeshivah.
Manny is not after justice, he's after revenge. This is abhorrent, and anyone associated with him is as guilty as he is.
There was a tremendous sense of shock, not just because we were talking about child abuse within the Jewish community in the first place, but simply because it had broken in The Age, which isn't known to be the best friend of the Jewish community. And the question was asked at the time, why has Manny gone to The Age? Why would he try and wash our dirty linen in public in a newspaper that really won't be that sympathetic?
There were many people from within the Jewish community that said that it was fantastic that Manny had come and had told his story and that this would really assist. And I think the police were also grateful to Manny in many ways because it did, and in court it would later came out that in fact a lot of other victims had come forward.
The fact that people in the Orthodox community actually thought we should accept that this has gone on, we shouldn't report it, it's not newsworthy, people should just accept that they are being abused or that they had been abused, they should just shut up about it because it's what happens.
The backlash also had huge ramifications for Manny's parents.
The week it came out in The Age, the rabbi of the synagogue, he started going through, if you don't listen to the rabbis, we have means at our disposal. And he started going through enumerating the different levels of excommunication which there are. Not being given things in the synagogue, not being allowed to join a minyan, to join a quorum, no one being allowed to talk to you. There's a whole different bunch of levels. I walked out then, after a few minutes of this sermon, and about 6 or 7 women also walked out. The women were stronger than the men. Many friends have become very ambivalent. Most people wouldn't want to be seen talking with me in public. There's only very few people that will talk to me in public in the synagogue now.
It's a problem. I feel slowly, my friends going down and down and down.
I mean, even her friends, it's because she's supporting me. For a while there, she was more ambivalent.
Even if they're good friends, some of them, but the husbands are funny with Zephaniah, so it's a problem. It is a big problem for me.
And I didn't mean to do it to her. Cross the community anyway, and you're going to have trouble getting your children married. Let's be very clear about that. There would be families that would wipe our family off and would not allow the child to go out with their son. They would not approve of it because of everything that's happened.
Even within the Waks family, some of the 17 children are critical of Manny and Zephaniah's campaign.
What's hurt the most is probably the lack of support from many family members, I think.
Unfortunately, it has affected the relationship with some of the kids that are not on the same page with us.
The more religious and observant a family member is, the less they are supportive. And that's been a very telling situation for me.
It hasn't made a complete break, maybe not even a severe break, but it's an elephant in the room.
One brother goes public in a 5-page tirade on social media. He questions Manny and Zephaniah's motives, claiming they've hijacked the testimonies of Jewish abuse victims for their own agendas. Despite the chorus of criticism, Manny remains focused on the cause.
I was working at that time, ridiculous, probably 16 hours a day on these types of issues. It was just out of control. That's when I realised that it was beyond just me personally. That's when I started talking to some people, and I realised I need to establish an organisation which is dedicated to this issue. And that's where Tzedek, which means justice in Hebrew, came into life.
Today, Tzedek is in contact with almost 50 Jewish victims of institutional abuse. About 30 of them allegedly from Chabad organisations across Australia, the majority from the Yeshivah Centre in Melbourne.
It needed to be beyond an individual. It wasn't a Manny Waks thing. It was a Jewish community issue and needed to be addressed as such. It wasn't just a yeshiva issue. It was much broader than that.
In fact, several other Jewish organisations have been embroiled in the scandal. Some launched inquiries. Chabad did not. Yeshiva supporters went on the offensive, accusing Manny of running an anti-religious vendetta against them.
Three times a day, you pray together. In the synagogue or wherever it is, you pray with a quorum. Now, because of the unpleasant feelings that I have in the synagogue, I didn't realise actually till I stopped how much it was actually affecting me. I go only on the Sabbath now to keep my foot in the door and so that I'm not stopping completely. But during the week, I pray at home. It's very highly unusual. My wife doesn't even like people to know that I'm doing it, but I'm not embarrassed about it. The Jewish tradition is you do learn with people together. That's what I had with two people, essentially, and both of them stopped eventually.
We started learning on Shabbos morning together, that's true.
I love it.
Now, he asked, am I good to learn with? And you said, I love it.
Very good to learn with. All of a sudden he was surprised I know so much.
Instead of backing down, Manny and his father further publicised their allegations of abuse and cover-ups at Yeshiva in their submission to the Victorian Parliamentary Inquiry into Child Abuse.
Take your time, Manny.
People often think about the toll on the victims, but there is an incredible toll that the victims' families also have to pay. I would like to take this opportunity to also publicly thank and acknowledge the unequivocal support of my parents.
Now, I should point out to you, I only got involved in this thing really, not because he's my son. I got dragged into it because he went public. If he would have asked me beforehand, I would have had trepidation because I would have known what's coming. And I'm glad he didn't ask me, because I believe his position of coming public has been completely vindicated by the number of people that have come forward. And just talking to the police privately and having it all covered up and quiet, that's exactly what everybody wanted to happen here. And my son broke that. And that's been very annoying to some people.
Good on you. Good on you. No, you're talking.
Despite allegations of exploiting his abuse to promote his media profile, Manny continues campaigning inside and outside the Jewish community.
Absolutely no one is above the law. Not priests, not rabbis, not imams, nor anyone else in positions of power or authority. We must ensure that what has happened once will never happen again. We must stand up as a community together and say loud and clear, enough, no more silence. Thank you.
There is a sense in some quarters within the community that Manny is a community personality who was always looking for a platform, and with the child abuse issue and having been a victim himself, he has certainly found it and is now making the most of it. And it's no longer about just the victims, it's about the Manny Waks show, and that is certainly how it's referred to in some quarters.
Not long ago, Friday nights at the Waks family was a full house celebrating the Sabbath.
More.
Now push it straight, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, now.
Don't push. That's it.
Now it's a tiny affair. Just the parents and Shani, their youngest daughter, still living at home.
You know, I used to have almost every Friday night my friends on Shabbos night. I didn't invite already 6 months. I didn't invite anybody. I don't feel like inviting anybody.
In contrast, Manny has severed ties to Orthodoxy, but remains connected to his Jewish culture.
Personally, I don't have any issue in driving on the Sabbath, and I do so pretty much every week.
He and his friends still celebrate the Sabbath, albeit with a modern twist.
As far as being invited to weddings, last 30 years we've invited them to our bar mitzvahs, our weddings and everything like that. That's stopped, so there's no more weddings anymore, almost none. Probably bothers my wife more than me. I'm focused on what's got to happen here.
He says he's strong, but I'll tell you, he doesn't sleep as he used to sleep. He gets up, he says, oh, I don't understand why I didn't sleep. He doesn't have the same appetite he used to have. So something is going on. Believe me, I know it's hard for him.
Almost 2 years after Manny's front page story rocked the Jewish community, the law was closing in on David Cyprus, the former security guard at the Yeshivah Centre. Around the same time, David Kramer, who fled to America, was facing multiple charges of sexual abuse at Yeshiva College. Manny attends Kramer's trial as leader of Tzedek and on behalf of the 4 victims who aren't prepared to go public.
David Kramer case, it's the first case, so it was always going to be a test to see where everyone stands. So there's an added element of a first.
David Kramer, you are to be sentenced for 5 charges of indecent assault and 1 charge of indecent act with a child under 16. On charge 1, to 9 months imprisonment. On charge 2, to 9 months imprisonment. On charge 3, to 9 months imprisonment.
Australian Jewish News.
Inside Australia's only national Jewish newspaper, the scandal is headline news.
Adam, I've just had a statement from the college. Yeshiva College sincerely regrets and unreservedly apologises for not informing the police at the time of the allegations arose. If any allegations were to arise today, they would be immediately reported to the police and the relevant authorities. But it's a step forward on what happened when the allegations first arose.
But questions remained over Rabbi Glick's failure to report Kramer to police when the allegations first arose. In court, police said their investigators encountered a culture of cover-up.
How was it?
Good. It was all right. You haven't heard anything?
Did you, what?
You haven't heard anything?
Nothing,
Oh,
nothing.
really?
Tell me what happened first.
So he got 3 years and 4 months in jail.
Okay, that's
but
not too bad.
It's not too bad, but the problem is that he's not going to serve. It's only 3.5 years, or 3 years and 4 months, and out of that, only 18 months in jail. The rest is on parole.
Wow.
You know,
Anybody from Yeshiva came?
No.
No one?
No. One of the victims I saw was there, but that's it.
Really?
Yeah. Right,
it's hard, but God will help. I know a lot of people thinking now what's going on is not right. What Yeshivah is doing at the moment. Menachem is, to me, is a hero. I look up to him. Yes?
Manny regularly seeks help to cope with the mounting cases of abuse landing on his desk, as well as the trauma of his own experience.
It's just left me very emotional in the courtroom. And I guess even, and even now, it took a toll on me. Really.
It's absolutely normal when one sees people subject to unreasonable emotional experience and they don't show an emotional response. Any professional would be wary as to what was to come.
And then just listen to the description of what actually was going on when they were reading the charges and the offences and the fact that the children, I didn't even realise that some of the victims were calling out for help. It's just astounding for me to hear that. I guess this was close to home in the sense that people very close to me.
Kramer's sentencing makes that night's news.
I wish he got more, because we don't feel he got the punishment.
I know, we know it's not what he deserved.
Told police about child sex abuse complaints against a teacher. 52-year-old David Kramer pleaded guilty to abusing 4 boys at the Yeshivah College Primary School between 1989 and 1992. Today, he was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in jail.
Yeshivah College sincerely regrets and unreservedly apologises for not
What a
informing
joke.
the police at the time the allegations arose. Kramer has already been in custody.
Saw you on television last night. Well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
With Kramer now in jail, Manny is steeling himself for the trial of his own alleged abuser, David Cyprus.
What I thought yesterday was, I was glad that I had that opportunity because it makes me feel like I'm preparing myself for when my time will come. I know it's going to be a grueling experience going through that court process and having to relive each and every moment because you're going to get cross-examined and your credibility is going to be attacked. I'm just going to have to fearlessly stand up and say the truth, what happened.
While Yeshivah apologises for the Kramer scandal, some of those involved in covering it up remain in their posts. Even though Yeshivah claims it has best practice in child safety today, for Manny and Zephaniah, it's a hollow apology.
They've claimed that they've now got great policies and procedures in place. Great, tick in the box. If they were honest about getting or providing support and genuinely care about the welfare of the victims, they would be more proactive. Just like they're proactive about issues of religion. Have they sent anyone to go to any of the victims to see how they're doing, to apologise directly to them? Have they ever done anything?
Today, Zephaniah is facing similar stonewalling. On the anniversary of his father's death, it is custom that his son should lead the prayers inside synagogue.
I've sent 2 emails already about this, and they haven't answered me yet. And I don't know what's going to happen. As far as getting called up goes, I'm going to stay in the synagogue even if I don't get called up. Let them start up with dead people, if that's what they want. I set up with my father. My father's a picture of him on the wall there. He was learning at the MIT of Berlin in the engineering school when Hitler came to power. But he stayed there even, he knew what's going on, till he got his degree. He said, this guy, I am not going to be forced out because of this. And I'm adopting some of that same principle here.
But unlike his father, Zephaniah left the secular world 40 years ago and joined the Chabad movement. Ironically, Manny has done the reverse.
Manny is not in the community anymore. He's quite understandably outside of the community now. So on the one hand, that gives him complete freedom. That means vis-a-vis the community, he doesn't care what they say. Okay, on the internet, he gets rubbished by some people that are well and truly within the community. In some cases, we know who they are. They can use swear words. They can absolutely do everything which is against Jewish law. lying and denigrating the family and him. But okay, he doesn't see it every day. He doesn't meet these people. It doesn't bother him. I'm the one that's meeting it. It's at the heart, it's the cold face. Okay, I'm going to shul, Chaya.
See you later.
You don't have to wait for me. Don't wait for me, here.
Inside the synagogue, Zephaniah's demands to lead prayers are being refused.
A funny thing happened to do with me not being allowed to daven Ma'ariv, to pray, to lead the prayers for the evening service. Normally the person that's leading the prayers goes and stands there.
What is all this crap about?
Jump in the lake.
What did he say?
What's all this crap about? It's funny because his son is a major supporter on Facebook of my son. Anyway, so 3 of them stood there for half an hour before the evening service started, just so that to make sure, even though they told me I couldn't do it, and not that I wasn't going to go and seize it. Do you understand the dynamics of what's going on here? I hope you do. I find it funny. When we were standing outside and people start up, it was just so funny. He thought there was going to be a punch-up guy. He thought maybe people would punch him. You were worried? There's a certain person here in the Kehillah, he says...
You are a fighter!
When he says that, come, bring it on, come, get me, please. But you've got to laugh. It's the only way. That's why I've got this problem of laughing about it. It's black humour, but what else can you do?
I'm more serious about the whole thing. It's too much for me. It's much too much.
What's the word? Betrayed? By the community? Yeah. I think she does.
Yeah.
Surely must be easier to just stand up and just say, you know what, enough. Just remove the hat and shave the beard and just, you know what, just fuck it. Just go back to how things were. But he's not doing that.
It hasn't weakened my faith at all. If anything, it's strengthened my faith because I see things that are written in the prophets where the prophet is telling the Jews, stop with the hypocrisy, stop bringing sacrifices, stop talking and praying so much when you're doing the wrong thing. Just start doing the right thing.
It is the lead-up to Yom Kippur, Judaism's holiest day, when Jews go to synagogue for prayers, which culminate in the blowing of the shofar, the ram's horn. It is a clarion call for them to repent.
On Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when everybody makes confession, if there are people in synagogues confessing to the Almighty for being engaged in abuse or being engaged in the covering up of abuse, it's not enough. They must speak to their victims and they must ask their victims forgiveness.
At this time of atonement, Rabbi Gutnick issues a blistering public rebuke of the culture of cover-up.
I wish to be frank. For whatever reason, a culture of cover-up, often couched in religious terms, pervaded our thinking and actions. It was simply wrong.
This is the holiest day of the year when we're atoning for our sins, and he was pointing out one of the most heinous sins and telling people that they had to realise that this had happened within our own community and that they couldn't be silent. They had to speak out and they had to come forward.
We are no different than any other community. What should make us different is how we handle it.
Meanwhile, Zephaniah has made a significant decision.
I'm not going into Yeshiva anymore now, by the way. I'm not going there now, even on Chabad. So my wife doesn't like me saying that, but I mean, that's it. I don't need to put up with this nonsense anymore. Chaya, these are the facts of life. There's no reason why people shouldn't... Yeah, well, this is a fact of life which doesn't have to be covered. There's nothing Chaya, there is nothing embarrassing in this for me. There is nothing embarrassing. I am not the one to be embarrassed. When I come to wherever I come after this life, if I have to give in front of the heavenly court, when I have to give din v'cheshbon, when I have to give account of my actions, that is the least of my worries. He won't even ask me. I have strong faith that he won't ask me why I didn't daven in shul.
With Yom Kippur failing to generate remorse, Zephaniah is becoming increasingly estranged from the Chabad community. and his son's long-awaited day in court is imminent.
It's not about the length of the sentence, it's more about the fact that he's found guilty of each of the acts that I can remember that he did to me.
Manny's revelations prompted over a dozen other alleged victims of David Cyprus to come forward, and police pressed multiple charges against the former security guard and karate teacher. But on the eve of the trial, a call from the Office of Public Prosecutions stuns Manny.
Manny speaking.
Hi, Manny. Here from the OPP.
Hi. Good. What's happening?
Yeah, look, good news. He's going to plead to the charges we discussed yesterday.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we're really happy with that result. We're thrilled. He's going to do that at midday today.
Wow. Wow. Oh my God, I've got to call my wife. David Cyprus has accepted a plea bargain deal in relation to my case. I don't have to go through a trial, don't have to be cross-examined. I'm basically stunned, really. Wow, it's amazing. It's amazing. Can't think straight about anything else. I just want to see him in the courtroom pleading guilty. That's all I want to see at this stage anyway. So, and I'm going to get that opportunity. That is just astounding. Wow. David Cyprus has just pleaded guilty. Yeah, amazing. I'm on the way to court now. Thank you. Thank you, yeah.
I'm really, really happy. It's all your credit.
I remember the shame, I remember the guilt, I remember the anger, I remember the taunts and the teasing, I remember the pain and suffering.
In court, the magistrate brands Rabbi Glick's testimony as unfathomable, and police accuse the college of protecting David Cyprus.
A former martial arts teacher and security guard at Melbourne's Yeshivah College has been jailed for 8 years for repeatedly sexually abusing boys in his care. David Samuel Cyprus raped one boy 5 times and sexually abused 8 others in a series of incidents dating back to the 1980s.
Firstly, obviously, this is a monumental day for the Australian Jewish community and also for myself personally. It's been a long journey. It's been decades coming.
It's very, very emotional. As a parent, there's very little we could have done, but you feel you didn't protect your kids, so, you know, you have an element of guilt there. So the fact of him getting something back also then reduces that for me.
It is unacceptable that the majority of those who are still in the leadership position at Yeshivah were in the same leadership positions over the last few decades. It is just unfathomable, and we will hold them to full account. Hey mate, Manny here. Just wanted to give you some of the good news. Just come out of court and he's been sentenced. It was amazing to actually see it in person, and I was definitely thinking about you, especially when they read out the things relating to you. Good on you, mate. I'll speak to you later. Bye. So what I'm going to do is I want to go to celebrate this a bit now, so I'm going to have a beer somewhere.
Yeah, good, excellent.
Excellent.
While it is highly unusual for Chabad members to go into bars, today Zephaniah's making an exception.
It looks a little bit different than I remember. This is a higher class bar, I would say, than what I was used to. Have you got anything a little bit more bitter or a bit stronger or something like that in taste?
Whiskey?
No, I mean as a beer.
L'chaim. Cheers. I think it's about justice for those who covered up.
100%.
Absolutely.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. Heidi.
Hi, Menachem.
Hey.
How was it? What's
You don't know yet?
the results? I don't know.
Okay.
That's so good.
I
you
don't know.
know.
What?
So he got 8 years
Wow,
jail,
that's not
and he
bad.
got 5.5 years minimum. So,
Wow.
That means he'll be sitting in
so
jail
it's-
for at least another 5 years.
Wow.
so
This
it's
is
good
good.
news,
You're
isn't
happy?
it? What we expected, absolutely. Yeah.
You're
But it's a good end of what was expected. It's definitely.
And there were strong comments as well by the judge, and so it's very good from our
Anybody
perspective.
from Yeshiva was there?
No, he had a few
That's interesting.
supporters.
No, but it's interesting. There was no one from Yeshiva there. No.
No one?
No, that's interesting.
They didn't do anything wrong. What did they do wrong?
I see Menachem is happy. I am happy.
Have you got little glasses?
I have glasses.
Glasses, big glasses. That's all right. I went into a pub the first time in 40 years today, Chaya.
That's what you bought.
No, I didn't. Chaya.
No, we had a beer there.
It was scary. It was scary. But it was scary all the way.
Give me a bit more. It's all right. I've got a dubbin still. L'chaim.
While Manny is savouring justice, Zephaniah's still grieving his exclusion from the community.
I've lost friends of 30 years, that's it, tough luck. I don't believe I'll ever go into the building again unless there's a major change, which is very unlikely to occur. I didn't do anything wrong, regardless of what people say. It's a joke.
With Manny's perpetrator behind bars, other victims continue to come forward. In a tragic twist, a former relief teacher at Yeshivah College, charged with 5 counts of child sexual abuse, was found dead in an apparent suicide, just weeks before he was to face court. Critics accuse Manny and his supporters of having blood on their hands.
This is really too much. Everything.
She says at every stage it's too much.
I can't.
Yeah, but you say at every stage that it's too much, and then it goes a bit further and it's still too much.
It's just, oh boy.
You're dealing with animals.
Excuse me? It's fine. Stop it. Stop it.
I don't know what word to use. Highly misguided people or how?
Not everything you think you say.
No, this one is important.
Everything you say.
Yeah, okay.
You have to watch your mouth. I'm sorry.
Last night I posted on Facebook, I'm bitterly disappointed to share that my parents, Zephaniah and Manny Waks, have made the difficult decision to sell their family home and relocate. You know, my father's losing sleep over it, and it's affecting his health, and my mother as well. It's, you know, so I don't think that they have a choice but leaving Australia.
We're going to Israel, Eretz HaKodesh.
She's got all her family there, so when we have
I
a
can't
place,
wait.
but it's.
I tell you the truth, if I could go now, I would go now, right now.
We are selling the house. The house is on the market as of yesterday. I'm very upset, of course. People have even made a comment on Facebook there today. I saw a comment now at the end of the day because someone said, they were probably going to move away. Now people just dismiss other people's feelings like that. They were going to move away. They're someone called us on Facebook now an elderly couple. Hi, you'll be happy to hear that. We're an elderly couple. It's the place where we brought up 17 kids, but we're now an elderly couple. So they would have wanted to downsize anyway. So someone else wrote back, my parents, right to the end, they wanted to stay in their own house. Thank you very much.
Not yet. Well, I wanted to go to live in Israel. Everybody knows. I wouldn't rush this way. I would do it slowly, with thinking. You feel like you have to be kicked out of a place.
It's very sad that they feel that they will have to leave Australia. It's not his community anymore.
I feel uncomfortable looking like the same as these characters. I feel uncomfortable. It's a uniform. But I'm not part of that battalion anymore. Definitely not. Okay, this is 24, so take from here and put in there.
Hi, this is her Waks.
I need to go to work, so what time's your flight?
Go get.
I'll go and get a bag.
What time's your flight, Nima?
3:15. I'd like to take the photo, so I want a memory of my house.
Smiling. Smile.
Yeah. For me, yeshiva and the community was all my life, everything. I was part of it with my blood, with my soul, everything.
Every time another one of these ratbags gets arrested, the happier I am and makes it all worthwhile.
He said not with the light.
That's true.